Hi, my name is Colin Offenbacher, and today we will be looking at North America and how certain foods are identified in the region. Starting from the Arctic Circle, traveling all the way down to the Panama Canal, the continent of North America covers an average area of 9.5 million square miles. Unfortunately, that is too wide of an area for us to cover in a 15-minute podcast, so instead we will be dividing the continent into three sections: the United States and Canada, Central America, which will include Mexico, and the Caribbean islands. We will start by looking at the United States and Canada. The food culture in the United States differs from other cultures around the world. With a wide variety of cuisines, American food culture often combines food from different countries, regions, and ethnicities to create entirely new dishes that are unique to the U.S. Food culture in America uses all the great flavors you find in different parts of the world, including influences and ingredients from all 6 major continents. But when I think of a signature dish of the U.S., I think of one thing: barbecue. The first reported barbecue meal was when a Mississippi Native American tribe cooked a feast of pork over barbacoa. Eventually, the technique made its way to the colonies, traveling as far north as Virginia. The technique for cooking barbecue is by roasting or smoking the pork over a wood or charcoal at a low temperature for several hours. This transforms the meat into tough cuts of tender, juicy pieces of meat. One of the more popular dishes is a pulled pork sandwich. While certain regions of the country have added their own flair to it, the main bones of the sandwich remain the same: a scoopful of slow-cooked shredded pork in a tangy, flavorful sauce, piled high on a soft bun sprinkled with pickles, served with a side of your favorite fries. It's a meal that always delivers. Turning our attention to our neighbors in the north, the main result that I have found for Canada's signature dish is poutine. The word, coming from Quebec slang, translates to mess, and it's clear to see why. Poutine consists of just 3 ingredients: French fries, cheese curds, and gravy. Mixed together, you find a gooey, tremendous mess that seems like the ultimate comfort food. While it was long associated with Quebec cuisine, its prominence has spread to the rest of the country and is now considered Canada's unofficial signature dish. Moving over to the economic side of food in the region, we will again look to our neighbors in the north and zero down on maple syrup. Being the world's largest producer, the industry contributes to $1.1 billion to Canada's GDP. On a world chart, Canada produces 81% of maple syrup. 85% of that production is exported out of the country, while the remaining 15% remains inside the country, where it circulates within the economy. An interesting note is that the United States is by far and away the number 1 leader in imports of maple syrup, leading the pack with 64%. The second closest is Germany with 9%. For the past decade, the Quebec maple syrup producers, or QMSP, have invested in research and development to constantly expand the knowledge about how maple syrup production affects the environment. Using cleaner energy sources and the new technique of tree sap osmosis, the goal for the QMSP is for greenhouse gases to be reduced by 40% in 2030. In the United States, farming contributes to the economy. Occurring in the Great Plains, 80% of the land is dedicated to farming. The region focuses on both agriculture and livestock production. The subdivision of this is mainly corn, wheat, barley, and soybeans for agriculture, and cow and sheep for livestock production. In 2022, according to the USDA, agriculture exports totaled a whopping $178 billion. Another powerhouse that fuels the U.S. economy is the fast food juggernaut McDonald's. Oxford Economics has reported that McDonald's contributes up to $76 billion per year to the U.S. GDP. The study also shows that McDonald's employs 1.2 million Americans. A lot of them are teenagers working their first jobs. While fast food restaurants have done wonders for the U.S. economy, it has also been a lead contributor to the ongoing obesity crisis occurring in this country. According to data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, more than 2 in 5 adults are obese and nearly 1 in 5 children are obese. Furthermore, 19 states in America have obesity rates over 35%. To compare that to a decade ago, when no states had obesity rates above 35%. Obesity is linked to several health ailments, including diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and a number of cancers such as breast and colorectal. What has caused that is both what we eat and how much we eat. The average portion size has quadrupled going back to the 1950s. Foods that are super processed, as well as those laced in high fructose corn syrup, dominate the American diet and are slowly killing the public. What needs to occur is for this country to return to its roots of farming. Fruits and vegetables mixed with organic meat should be staples in our diet, but it is not. There are 2 major reasons for that. One is price, one is convenience. Fresh products are more expensive to farm and thus more expensive to buy. With millions of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, the last thing many people want to do is spend an extra hour in the kitchen preparing a meal. It's much easier to DoorDash a meal to your front step or pick something up on the way home. Until these issues are addressed, America will continue to struggle with obesity. Switching borders to our neighbors in the South, we look at the countries that make up Central America. Before looking at the signature dishes, we must look at the two food staples that dominate Central America: rice and beans. Unlike the United States, the citizens of Central America countries didn't have the money to rely on livestock protein, so instead they got their protein and calories from rice and beans. Introduced by the Spanish and Portuguese during the conquest of the 16th century, rice was never before seen in the region. Now, however, it is an essential part of almost every meal. In fact, in Central America, the pairing of beans and rice is called matrimonio, or the marriage, because their union is so perfect. So perfect that when eaten together, beans and rice contain all the essential amino acids to form a complete source of protein. While looking at a signature dish of the region, it was hard not to choose tacos. Considered a street food of Mexico, it is still as popular there as it is in the States. Yet I wanted to find something that encapsulated the entire region. This is where gallo pinto comes in. A dish that is argued between Nicaragua and Costa Rica as to where it originated. It contains a base of, you guessed it, rice and beans. Mixed in with a multitude of vegetables and salsa Lizano, the dish is usually served as breakfast with a side of scrambled eggs. When we look at the economies
This
of
new
Central
plant
America,
from Brazil
a
is
key
showing
export that
promise.
keeps some of the countries
It
going
bears an
is coffee.
unusually large number of beans.
Central American coffee is known for its high quality and distinctive flavor
Esto son
profile.
plantaciones de 3 años.
Coffee from
These are
this
the
region is typically
three-year-old.
grown at high elevations in the mountains, which provide ideal conditions for coffee production. The volcanic soils and cool, wet climate are well suited to growing coffee, with countries including Costa Rica, Guatemala, and El Salvador being the ones leading the way. In the journal article written by Stephen Topek, he looks at how the coffee business has declined in Latin America over the past 30 years. Since the end of the Cold War, all of Latin America has seen a hit in exports. Take a look at Guatemala, which at one point saw 40% of their exports be coffee and employed 25% of the population. However, political turmoil and constant violence in the country saw the business take a hit. The same can be said with Costa Rica, which was the original country in Central America to begin coffee exporting. After the plummet of prices in 1989, Costa Rica should have been able to recover, as their state was in a healthy way. Technological advancement, political peace, and state help for farmers should have seen the business improve. However, it did not. Today, Costa Rica exports represent only 3% of GDP. Lastly, we will look at what food culture is like in the Caribbean. Mouth-searing hot sauces and aromatic marinades were added to traditional European dishes thanks to the plethora of herbs and spices used in Caribbean cuisine. The signature dish that we will look at is jerk chicken. Although it's native to Jamaica, it's found all over the Caribbean islands. The meal finds the meat being dry rubbed or wet marinated with a very hot spice mixture called Jamaican jerk spice. It's traditionally applied to pork and chicken, but the sauce can also be used for certain types of fish. Jerk sauce is made with a combination of Scotch bonnet peppers, pimento allspice, nutmeg, soy sauce, and thyme, amongst other seasonings. You get hints of sweet, salty, lots of spicy, and a kick of flavor, which is used to describe the islandy taste. The dish is usually accompanied by rice and peas and fried dumplings. Just as in Central America, the Caribbean nations were infatuated with rice when it was introduced to them by European colonizers. It is usually a staple as a side on most dishes. Another key part of the Caribbean culture is fishing. Recreational fishing makes important economic contributions through tourism and major international fishing tournaments. This provides a healthy source of seafood that is integral to reflecting the unique and diverse cultures of the Caribbean region. While the geography of this area promotes a great amount of prosperity, it can also lead to devastating events. The Caribbean lies in the path of a multitude of hurricanes per year. An example of a year when hurricanes decimated the Caribbean economy was 2017. After Hurricane Maria demolished Puerto Rico, the impacted nation estimated a $15.4 million loss in damages to fishing operations. It's estimated that 174 jobs were lost in the short term. Unfortunately, this is just a way of life for citizens, as hurricanes will continue to come every fall when the weather turns. While all of this research is nice, it would be better to have a first-hand example. I was lucky enough to be joined by a good friend of my brother, Rene Hernandez, where the two are classmates at the University of Florida. Now, I'm very grateful to have my good friend Rene. Rene, thank you for sharing some time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk about food.
Yeah, yes, it is. But before we get there, can we just get a quick background on you?
Sure, so my name is Rene Hernandez. I'm a good friend of Colin's brother, and I am the son of a Cuban immigrant who escaped Cuba after Fidel Castro took over the country. My dad's entire family escaped together, so they're very tight knit.
Wow, so it's quite clear you had a heavy Cuban influence growing up.
Yeah, you could say that.
So tell me about the food growing up.
Yeah, so while we definitely had an American influence on my meals, I think at home there was always some type of bean dish that my mom would make. My mom loved to cook, and while we varied in the meats, there was always some sort of bean dish.
Would there be rice as well?
Oh yeah, of course. Rice is a given in our culture. But the other dish that was constant was yucca. I don't know if you know about that.
I do, but if you could tell the audience.
I guess a good comparison would be a potato, but it's so different. It's way more dense and soft than a regular potato, and I don't really know how to describe it. It's so unique, I guess.
No, it's all good. I've actually tried it before, and you're right. It's very unique, very different. Well, Renee, I'm sorry this is very short, but I do have a time limit. It was a pleasure discussing foods with you.
Of course. Thanks, Colin.
Well, that is it. Thank you again to Renee, and thank you to you all for listening. It was quite fun researching the differing cultures of former Spanish America, and I feel I have a better understanding of not just their food culture, but their way of life. My main goal after doing this is to find a place that makes a good gallo pinto. Thank you.